Well, welcome back to the Road to Retirement. My name is Chris Anselmo with Brookside Tax and Financial Group, and today we have our T Squared team, Tony Marlette Jr. and Tony Shore.
Good
Tony
morning.
Shore's a little under the weather, but not contagious, so that's good.
Yeah.
And we have
I'll
to
be
pick,
fine.
we have to pick on him because our tribe is in the playoffs and his Minnesota Twins are not. So.
Ooh, Twins looked pretty bad this year, but go Indians, right?
You know,
Tribe.
if
Guardians.
Guardians.
It's the Guardians
whatever.
now.
Yeah.
I know.
Cleveland,
I
go
can't-
Cleveland.
I think
Go
the thing that
Cleveland.
did the Twins in, Tony, was those end of the year meetings against the guards where they just,
Yeah,
they barely put up a fight.
I
mean, they
know it was weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they showed us like 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were 1.5 games in the lead. Now we're like 10.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really, that's all it is nowadays, is the non-balanced schedule that follows the division. Next year, they're going to a more balanced schedule, so you may not have that big advantage.
All right, T. What are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we would go over something that I found particularly interesting. It was an article from a gentleman by the name of Bryce Sanders over at Benefits Pro. There's many different topics on this and articles written. This certainly isn't the only one, but I thought this was a good one. The 7 deadly sins of retirement planning. So I thought we could go through these. I know
Should have
Chris
did this around Halloween. That's okay.
Well, it is kind of, we're a month off.
Yeah.
And Chris and I and Tony, you probably talk to advisors who can, tell you a lot of these mistakes that we see people making, and what a good advisor can do to kind of get people out of these habits and bring them back to reality. So, first one here, of course, being delaying too long.
Sloth.
That's
Putting
right.
it off. Slothfulness. Yeah.
I used to know those 7 deadly sins. I
Oh,
got
yeah.
a little guilty on the gluttony, but
Yeah.
So I thought this
Hello.
would be kind of right in your wheelhouse here. You talked about a fastball down the plate earlier, but this is in the Chris Anselmo wheelhouse, I think.
So what about sloth? Are we getting too lazy or?
Yeah, so retirement seems like it's far away. So you just, for lack of a better word, you procrastinate. You have your career now. Certainly understandable if you have a family, you're raising a young family. Certainly, again, understandable. But once you're no longer providing as much, maybe for that family, maybe you're not necessarily having a young family, and you're a little more established in your working career. It's time to prioritize your retirement.
Yeah, and we often see this in the estate planning arena because no one ever thinks they're going to pass away. So procrastination. You see, look, it happened to my dad. We talked about it on other shows. If he would have signed those documents years before when I asked him to, that they would have saved $100,000 in nursing homes. But there are sometimes you have to do the homework because there are time frames that you can't undo. With the estate planning one, especially with nursing homes, they have that 5-year look back. So if you wait too long, you may not get past your 5-year look back. So sloth is definitely basically waiting too long.
Right.
Yeah. People put off anything regarding especially death. So estate planning, nobody wants to think about it or talk about it, and everybody's putting it out of their mind so they don't have to deal with it. And retirement planning is the same. I think, like you always say, Chris, people spend more time planning a
vacation.
a week-long vacation than they do their retirement, which is sad because retirement involves, it's for most people, it's a third of their life nowadays. So.
Yeah. And I just had a funeral yesterday for an aunt, and 99 years, so she had a good run. But people do procrastinate; they never think it's going to happen to them, and
Right.
It's just it happens to everybody, right? Nobody gets out of here alive, so. So we, don't procrastinate because you worked all your life to save all these assets, and then if you're just going to throw them away, and your family's not going to get them, here, I'll just charge you more attorney's fees. You can throw them our way. No, so Just kidding. But yeah, so procrastination, delaying too long, and the other realization as we're getting older, like we were talking about my cousins the other day, I'm like, that's the last aunt other than my mom of that generation. And that aunt, my Aunt Rose, had 10 brothers and sisters who were all married, right? So there's 20 funerals that are gone. And my dad had 8 brothers and sisters, and they're all gone except my mom. So, like our generation's next. So, stop procrastinating. So,
Yeah.
Sobering reality there.
Yeah.
So moving on to a little bit about greed here, assuming the good times are going to last forever. I think we've all seen this, especially recently, where people look at the market or they look at their accounts and say, well, you know what? It's going really well. Why would I make any changes? Next thing you know, we have geopolitical concerns, we have inflation, we have interest rates, and people are seeing some red on their statements. And I think what I've seen, they make the mistake of saying, well, you know what? I want my account to get back to where it was, and then maybe I'll make changes to it. And I think that's just a completely flawed line of thinking.
Yeah. I mean, especially, if you look at the last 20 years, the market's been pretty good. I mean, we've had a couple of really, like we had 2008 was bad. We had a couple, but overall, the market's been really good, and people get complacent and think it's going to last forever. So some of the mistakes are people are either too aggressive or they have all their money in the market, right? So when a time like this comes and the market's down, they have nothing to throw in. When I always say the market's like a roller coaster. Everyone is laughing and giggling on the way up, and they're screaming on the way down. But but eventually the roller coaster stops where you started, right? So the market's much like that, and really for investors, you need the advisor on the way down, right? So the advisor there's studies to show the advisors can help make 2 or 3 more points even after cost. But I think that we find out is that the advisor helps more on the way down. Like normally, if you have a good advisor, you should be losing less than if you just blindly were in the market. So,
Right.
Yeah, and I
Right.
mean, to your point about adding value on the way down, I think that's a good point. Part of our job, one of the hats we wear is being a coach. I tell people part of what we do is we save you from yourself. I don't want you to go and make bad decisions, right? And then also, part of our job when we're doing this financial planning is to poke holes in your plan, to say, okay, what if this goes wrong? What if this goes wrong? And it's not to be cynical or negative. It's to try to foolproof and try to, put some protection and set realistic expectations.
Yeah. And sometimes when we use annuities, some of they're 5, 7, 10 years long, and people get upset. That's a long time, but it stops at emotional. They don't. If you're not going to lose money in that part, you don't have to jump in and out of the market. Prevent you from pulling all your money out when the market's down. Right.
Well, plus if all your money's in the market and you're using it for income in retirement, you're having to pull out when the market is way down like it is now, and that's really going to cost you. So what you guys are saying is you also need money that's not in the market to use as income in retirement, like Social Security or a pension or a fixed index annuity, something like that, correct?
Yeah, yes. And that's actually a perfect segue into our next one. Chris talked about gluttony before, but Tony expecting a great lifestyle.
What was he calling you out, Tony? I thought he was calling you out. I mean, what the heck, Tony?
Yeah.
Wait till you get our age. I was 30 pounds lighter at one time.
I'm usually on my way to or from a pizza buffet. So yeah, gluttony might be a problem for me.
No, Chris talked about gluttony before.
I
know. But no, that's good. And I think with this one, you brought it up before about pensions and Social Security. Steady income used to be the norm in retirement. And we've seen it. We've talked about the 3-legged retirement stool before with Social Security, pension, and investments. You need all 3 more than ever. No, it's definitely not. It's certainly not.
No.
Yeah. And even people have pensions. I see a lady came in the other day. She says, "Yeah, I have my husband's pension. It gives me $83 a month." I'm like, "That's not really a pension." I mean, that's I understand you got a
Wow.
pension, but $83 a month is, that's not even gasoline for the month anymore. Right?
That's
So,
not going to cover the streaming services
I
to
think
watch
Tony,
TV.
did you get a fancy new mic there? Looks like it's wireless and everything.
No, there
Okay.
actually is a wire coming
Okay.
from underneath. You just can't see it, but
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the Shure
He's
SM7.
radio, so he's got all the gadgets. So,
Oh yeah, yep.
so,
And we have sound effects. Yep.
Whoa, we need that one.
so gluttony also is maybe checking out your spending. I would think, like, if are you buying high end assets all the time? Do you have the fancy cars and are you living beyond your means? Maybe sometimes in retirement, if you're not bringing in as much money as you used to, some of that has to go away, right? You just
Right.
can't go. You can't go out to eat 7 times a week like you used to. So
Yeah, and
maybe
it's just really a simple matter of us. We come into play here where we help align your expectations with your assets and your expected income.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the important pieces too.
So the next one, I talk to people a lot because I think it's a misconception that expenses are going to be less in retirement. I always say, when you were working 40 hours a week or so or more, you were making money, and now you got 6 Saturdays and a Sunday. So you can spend a lot of money on 6 Saturdays and Sundays. So not necessarily that your expenses are going to go down. Some of them will, but your travel's going to go up. You might be spending time with grandkids, going to Disney. So that's probably some type of sin there. What do you think?
Yeah, so they talked about the sin of anger
Hey,
appearing
so
when
you're mad at everybody now.
right.
You're mad that
When-
expenses didn't go down.
They're right. That's exactly what it says here, and
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, health insurance expenses will. We've seen it with Medicare going up. It's going to go up next year too.
Well, I mean, look what happened just in the economy now. We were talking about that event we were at last week. Like, I don't want to pick on the Democrats, but since they got in, I mean, housing's up, gas is up, food is up. I mean, the cost of everything is going up more than like the rate of Social Security is going up, right? So a lot of things are more expensive than they were even 2 years ago. So that hurts when you're on a fixed income.
Yeah, Fidelity estimates actually 55 to 80% of your expenses when you were working should be taken into consideration when you're in retirement. So I agree. People think too much that, I'm not going to be spending anything. I'm retired. That's pretty far from the truth.
Yeah.
So what's the next one, Tony?
So
Relying
this
on
one,
someone else.
yeah, relying on someone else. This can be,
That's got to be envy.
yeah, this can be, which one? Yeah, you're right. This can be relying on someone else, meaning a parent or the government.
Okay.
Don't make the mistake. We have right on the Social Security website now is a warning about being underfunded by the year 2035. Don't make the mistake that the government's going to be there to bail you out. And, don't assume too that, we've heard people, and it's alarming to hear this. Oh, I'm relying on an inheritance. So part of your retirement plan is waiting for somebody to die. Like that's not a plan.
My aunt just died at 99. Hope their kids weren't waiting, right? So, I mean, because at 99, her kids are almost 70 or maybe 7, right? So it's you can't be relying on inheritances, especially we've seen times where the decedent doesn't leave it to the children.
Right.
They're expecting this inheritance, and they're like, well, you never come around to see dad for the last 15 years. He gave it all to a charity. Like, what do you mean? Like, well, he was more involved in that charity in his last 15 years, and you never came to say hello to him. Why should he give it to you? But yeah. So we do.
Makes sense.
So a lot of people are relying on someone else. That's gonna be tough if those expectations don't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. And people rely on inheritance, but people also I've heard, and you guys, oh, I'm not going to live that long.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not that healthy. I'm not planning on
Well,
living
I mean,
that
the
long.
one
I don't
yeah.
need that
Well,
money.
similar to that song, the one we always hear is, I'm never going in a nursing home. And we've had how many shows where
Oh,
statistically 2 out of
yeah.
3 people over 70 will spend time in some facility. I mean, 2 out of 3, that's, well, I'm not going in, so it must be you two, right? So
I was
it's never going to happen to me, right?
Yeah.
You always hear that. It's never going to happen to me.
My dad thinks that. Even though my mom is now in a nursing home, my dad said I'm never going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
I don't need long-term care insurance or a plan to pay for that, son. I'm not ever going to go into one of those
I mean,
homes.
they're like, well, no, I don't want to go to nursing home. I'm like, look, everyone in the nursing home doesn't want to be in a nursing home. So just saying that you don't want to be in a nursing home is not.
I like the one that I hear from people when I ask them what their plan is, and they say, "I tell my kids to put me in a box and kick me off a cliff." Oh, okay. Like, has anybody ever done that before? I'm sure somebody's done it, but
I have a client who says,
Hopefully not.
I got a bottle of Jack Daniels and some pills by my bed. And I said, well, what if at the time you forget why they're there? If you're that bad off, you're like, I wonder what those are for.
Yeah.
But, I mean, but that's not a real way to plan, right?
No, right.
So,
and remember, Social Security was at its core originally only designed to be there for to keep people from becoming impoverished. So it was never intended. Relying on someone else, the government part of it was never intended to be your sole source of retirement.
When Social Security started, I don't know, was it back in the 30s or whatever?
Yeah, 1935, I think.
People probably only lived as maybe 70. Right now they're living 100. Right?
No, I think the average life expectancy for men when it started was in their 60s.
Yeah. So, okay, next sin. What do we got?
So this one, I think we can skip past this one. It's not really important. It's not going
inflation?
on right now. It's never going to happen.
Depends who you're talking about. It's not factoring in inflation. Okay.
So Tony, what deadly sin do they tie this one with?
This one's pride. So
because you don't believe it, huh?
You don't believe in it, right? Your client thinks that they can bargain hunt their way out of being affected by inflation, that they can keep expenses down and spend less.
Well, we're looking at 10% inflation, so I'd like to know how they're going to make up that 10%.
Healthcare far outpaces that.
And cost of education. Look, prime example. There's a dollar store across the street. Everything's now $1.25, even though it says dollar store, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, it's $1.25 now. So if you don't think inflation's real, theirs is up 25%, right? So.
And this is part of why we run when we run these plans. I talked about the simulations, the Monte Carlo analysis, where these retirement plans and Compass plan reports that we run, they factor in these Monte Carlo analysis where it's like a worst case scenario, a best case scenario.
I mean, I don't know how people don't. Look, 30 years ago, if you don't believe in inflation, how much this stuff cost 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how much was a car 30 years ago? How much was a house 30 years? How much was
college 30 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, when I went to college, and I've been out, 30 years ago, I was in college, right? Maybe longer. So whatever. But so I went to a private Jesuit college, and it was $4,000 to $5,000 a year to go to college, Jesuit school. My niece is now going to a Jesuit school. We won't say which one. And it's $85,000 a year.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you don't think things are going up while you're retired, you're foolish, right? I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, it has to happen because, look, it's just everybody wants to make more money every year. Every employee wants to make more money. Every business owner wants to make more money. To make more money, you got to raise prices, right? You can't have the same price structure and pay everybody more, because once everybody gets paid more, then the cost of goods, we don't sell widgets, but if we had product and inventory,
right,
that has to go up too. The inventory has to go up. The cost of inventory goes up because they got to pay the laborers more money. So everything every year goes up. Nothing is the same. Right?
No. And that's why that's part of what we take into every plan that we run. So Tony mentioned this one earlier, a couple points ago, about not respecting life expectancy. So, people might say, well, I'm only going to live to 70, 75. Longevity doesn't run in my family.
Trying to think what we did here. So Lust.
Yes.
I think we went through this. Is this the seventh one? Okay.
Yes.
So a good Catholic education. Yeah, you got to know.
Yeah,
That's
Makes
why I
sense.
figured this one would be right in your wheelhouse.
There's also the seven virtues too, but we'll have to do
Well,
one
sure.
on seven virtues sometime.
Yeah, there you go.
So
So
Yeah.
it's about how long are your assets going to last you too.
Right.
If you, I've had people. I just did one of these yesterday. A younger couple where pretty good amount of assets saved up, and they still run out of money if they don't make some changes. And they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing fine. Part of what they wanted to hear was, what can we be doing better?
Yeah.
Um,
Part
so-
of it is you just have to save more. I mean, people don't real they just, some of the things is people just want to spend their whole paycheck and then they expect in retirement that they're going to have money put away. Like, you can't spend your whole paycheck every week and then have a retirement plan, especially considering there's not a lot of pensions out there anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
And while you're young, or while you're working anyway, you need to be invested. You need to be in the market. So you shouldn't be, we've talked about this countless times where you get out of the market, you miss the top 5-10 days of the year, which are completely random. Your returns get cut in half. So that we can run a whole separate show on. But bottom line, you don't need to be playing around with trying to be fancy and cute and day trading and things like that. There's certainly a place for it, and that's fine. But if you're trying to save and trying to get to where you need to be, you just need to stay consistent.
It's even worse than Tony said, because I think it was Fidelity or Vanguard did a study years ago. It's like if you missed the 10 best days in the last 30 years,
yeah,
you're like, your account's a third.
No, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's not
We
even the
got
10 best
printout.
days this year.
And not
right?
this year. You're
Yeah.
right. It's of the top 10 days, and they're completely random days. It's not like they were part of a big bull market run.
Yeah, well, oftentimes the best days are right after the worst days.
Correct.
Right. So it drops 20% one day, then it goes up.
And just
15 the next
recently,
day.
we had within the last week, we had a 200-point day up. So I mean, who knows? That could be one of the best days of this year.
So life expectancy, look, you're gonna every generation's lived longer than the one before, right? So you're gonna live longer. Hopefully, if you're, just statistically, we're gonna live longer, and that means you're gonna need money for a longer period of time.
Right.
So you have to save more. I mean, when people like, we look at some of these, we talk about retirement ages for federal employees and judges and stuff. Oh, maybe we should have a cap, 70, 75. Yeah, well, when they made those rules in the 1700s, people lived to 60. They didn't live to 100. So the same thing now, people are living longer. So, I mean, what's I think last time we ran some life insurance, the life expectancy is like 122 or something on there. So if you could be retired more years than you've worked.
Right.
Right. So, so when you're done working, that's it. That's your money. Right. So, we really have to make sure that we're planful about your money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and another thing regarding not respecting life expectancy, you guys have, I think you've mentioned this to me before, Chris, and that's people who say, I want to bounce my last check.
Yeah. Well,
I
when's your
can't
last
take
check? Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look,
That's the
didn't
problem.
your grandfather just passed, right?
Yeah,
He was
101.
Okay. I mean, that's
And 2 months before he passed, he was camping in his new camper that he bought
bless
earlier
him.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Wow.
All right.
That's
So hey,
great.
we're about running out of time. I think we're 27 minutes into this. So any final words?
No, just if you like our content, click, comment, and subscribe. Our Facebook page, our YouTube page. You
Why
can
don't
also
you,
give us a call. I don't
okay.
have our fancy one up there, but I do have the
So
website.
for our listeners who are not seeing this, 440-886-3550 or brooksidetax.com. So with that, I think we'll finish. Tony, we'll talk to you next week. And Tony, I'll talk to you in 2 minutes. All right. See you guys.
Sounds good. Thank you, gentlemen.
See you guys. Thanks. Bye.